Welcome to the Traveller's Guide to Warcrow from the Dice Gods. My name is Hydra, and today we are going to deal with a central, fundamental, crucial part of the system itself, something that's pretty unique to the system, and if you get to grips with it, will make your life a lot easier. But before we get into that, thank you to Lowland Miniatures for sponsoring this series. They are a good friend of the channel, and we buy most of our Warcrow, Infinity and Bolt Action from them, so we'd highly recommend you check them out. Link in the description below. They've got some incredibly keen prices, ship across Europe, so if you need some new toys, check them out, because to describe their pricing as aggressive would be somewhat underselling it. So thank you so much to those guys. Now, we're going to talk about the turn counter today. You've probably seen the Wheel of Power in all its glory in various videos and images, but what is it actually for, and how to use it, and why is it so important? Well, the turn counter really is central to Warcrow. And actually, we're going to start at the bottom. This thing remembers everything so you don't have to, because there are a lot of events and effects, and you can get demoralized and all this kind of stuff. Remembering the where and the how and the why to do that is a bit of a pain in the bum, to be honest with you. And you've got spells going off all over the place. Some troops are running off, other ones aren't. Keeping track of what needs to happen when, in any system, can be a bit of a pain. But in Warcrow, because there are things that happen at various points and at different sort of cadences, so some things happen after 5 turns, some 2, it can be a bit of a nightmare to remember all. This little doodad is there so that you can put a little marker down, and when you get to it, go, what am I doing? This. This is really good. So, what do we track? We track the turn. Yes, that's right. On a turn counter, we count and we track turns. It's novel and unique, but there it is. We also signpost events, so we know that Warcrow is a narrative-heavy system, so it is not surprising that some scenarios allow for stuff to happen. And when does that stuff happen? Well, when the turn counter tells you that it does. You can also track effects on here. So effects are things like spells. If you do a nasty or a nice with some magic, the turn counter will tell you when that stops, essentially. And finally, we have the demoralized checks. So trying to rally troopers who've had enough and decided to go home. Maybe they don't actually want to. Maybe they're going to turn around and have another go. There's a certain point where they get to do that, and the turn counter will tell you when. This also tells you the order when things happen. So sometimes it can be really important if, say, a spell which is reducing the morale of your troops, making it more likely they're going to run away, whether that comes off before or after a unit has to make a morale check. That can be really, really important. Essentially, when you have a stack of tokens on the turn tracker, which you may well get, that's perfectly reasonable and perfectly fine. When you have that stack, you start at the top and you work your way down, and they are resolved in the order in which they're there. So if the spell went on after the unit was demoralized, then the spell would come off because it would be higher on the stack than before the morale check was made, the rallying check was made. So it is really important, and it is really useful to know that. It's simple and straightforward, and it just stops those whole discussions of, hang on, is this first or is that first? I'm not entirely sure. Well, should we check the rulebook? No. Look at the pile. Which one's first? That's the one we resolve first. Simple as that. So that's the brief of it, but let's get into some meat. Let's start talking about turns. To understand how and why we track the turns, we need to understand what they are. Relatively simple and straightforward. Every game of Warcrow is split into rounds. Each round is split into turns. Exactly how many of each are defined by this scenario. And during a turn, each player may activate one unit. So that does mean that not every unit may activate in a round. This is important. It's one of the great things inside of Warcrow, because it means you need to make a decision about who, what, where, and how you're going to do the stuff. Now, on the right of the screen here, we have take positions. This is one of the scenarios that's inside the main rulebook. And as I've handily put a nice blue arrow pointing towards, the rounds in this game last for 5 turns. So that means in a single round, you will activate 5 units in total. If you have 7 units in your company, then 2 will not get activated in a round. Thrilling, huh? So, how does that fit in with our turn tracker? Well, that on the bottom right is the end of round token. This is defined where that is placed is defined by the scenario. When you reach that, you get to complete a no one gets left behind action, which basically means that anyone that didn't activate, any of your units which didn't activate during the turn, aren't demoralized, aren't engaged, may perform a move action. So you do still get to do something with them, they just don't get to do all of the things. Then you follow the end of the round process, and then you advance the end of round token forward by the number from the scenario, and you start a new round. So, if we have as we saw previously, a 5-turn round, then when you start the game, you will place the end of round token on the 5th turn, so the 5th circle on the wheel. When you get to that 5th circle, you'll do no one gets left behind, you do the whole end of the round process, then you will take that end of round token and you will advance it forward 5 steps to the 10th circle, and you'll place it there, and then you'll start your new round. Why do we not reset? Why do we not pull back to the start? Well, because, as we indicated, certain events, certain spells, certain things can happen much later than your round ends. So, for example, if you're on the, I'm going to use this 5-turn example, if you're on the 3rd turn of a 5-turn round, and you cast a spell that lasts 6 turns, for the sake of argument, you need to place the marker for that on the 9th turn. That would be when it would end. So 9 in the future, or 6 in the future. Now, if you get to the 5th turn and you reset everything back, then you need to move that marker back to the 6th, but you never get to the 6th, so you're constantly resetting. So you just keep going round and round the circle. You keep going round and round the turn tracker. It's there to make it so that you don't have to remember, oh yeah, this has to happen in the next round. This isn't in this round, it's in the second round. No. You put it on the turn tracker, and when you get to that icon, when you get to that token, you do the thing. So you never reset, you just keep going round and round and round and round and round. Simple as that. Next up, we have our events markers. So it's time for a bit of story. So the world of Warcrow is just full of narrative. That's the whole beast underneath the fine veneer of awesomeness that is Warcrow. We have this rich narrative environment. I mean, look at the lore and the stories that buzz around. It's very, very deep. So it's not surprising that some scenarios will include some events that will happen during your game. That'll be told in a scenario. It will tell you when to place it and where to place it on the turn tracker. You put that event scroll marker on the turn that the scenario requires, and when you hit that, you do the thing the scenario tells you to do. So it can be a beastie arrives, or there's a rain event, or weather, or everything explodes, or whatever. Hoo-Poo jumps out of a cake and hits you in the face with a spanner. I don't know. There's all kinds of weird and wonderful things, and to be honest with you, what's coming out of their ears worries me. But that's what you do with these markers. For the most part, from what we've seen so far, events happen once and then they go. Their effects happen and then they disappear. That's fine. But there are some that in theory can happen repeatedly, so maybe it happens every 3rd turn, something occurs. That's one of the options. But you'll use this scroll marker to indicate on your turn tracker when that is going to occur. Next up, we have effect markers. So this is when magic comes into play effectively. We have 2 sets of effect markers that come as standard with all the starter sets and with the terrain sets if you pick those up. There is red and blue currently, and they're numbered 1 and 2 for each of them. So you have 1 red and 2 red and 1 blue and 2 blue, both in large and small size tokens. When you do the thing, when you cast a spell, whether it's buffing a friendly or nuking an enemy, whatever you do, what you do is, if that effect lasts for more than 1 turn, you'll take the large marker and you'll place that on the turn tracker at the point where that effect will end. And then you'll take the small marker and you will place that on the unit which is being affected. So let's say you have given you Orc Warriors a buff and they're now intimidating. Let's just say you've given them a magic spell of poof, 3 turns of that. You will look 3 turns in advance. If you're on the 3rd turn, you'll put on the 6th turn the big marker with 1 or 2 on it, whichever is suitable or appropriate, and then you'll place the corresponding number on the orc unit which is affected. So yeah, it's just a way of making sure that your spells last as long as they should do, that you remember that they come off, you remember that they're there, because that's my personal trick, is forgetting I did the thing and then, oh yeah, that would have helped. Anyway, when you hit that point, when you hit that the turn where your large marker sits, the spell ends. The marker is removed both from the unit which was affecting and also from the turn tracker, unless you recast it during your turn and advance it or whatever. So yeah, it's just there to keep you sane and make sure you don't forget anything. Next up, Demoralized state. Would you believe it? If you've been poked with a sharp stick and it hurt, you may not wish to hang around and wait for the opponent to do that again. You may in fact decide this is a bad idea for a game of toy soldiers, and you may decide to leave. That is when your troops decide to leave the board. That is when they become demoralized and they choose to run away. We will cover all of this stuff later in more detail, but every unit will have a willpower. When you have received stress tokens which take you beyond that number, so if you have a willpower of 2 and you get 3 stress markers, then you have the probability or possibility of becoming demoralized. You make a willpower check. If you fail, you guys are off. They're out of it. They're making a run. So they will move towards your deployment zone. If they get to your board edge, they make contact with that, they're gone. They disappear from the game, which is pretty rubbish. So try not to do that. But so that's what the demoralized state does. Now, if they don't reach that board edge, if they're halfway across the board and they're just running back as quickly as they can do, but they haven't made it in this turn, you take a big marker. Again, these are numbered. So you take a big marker, you put it 2 turns forward, and you put a small marker with the same number on the unit's card so that you know which is which. And then when you get to that turn, you make another morale check. And hopefully this time they decide it is a better idea if they hang around and they don't keep running. But if you fail, again, you put it 2 forward, leave it on the unit card, and then you make the check at that point until either they leave the board or you succeed. So trying to rally is important and yeah, can be pretty game altering. So tracking and demoralized is really important, and remembering to make that rallying roll is key. But again, we'll cover this in more detail with morale and demoralized and all that good stuff later in a later video. But that's everything you need to know actually about the turn tracker. So we hope you found that really interesting. It wasn't particularly long because although it's a very important and fundamental thing and it can initially appear confusing, it is actually quite simple and straightforward. So thank you for watching on that front. But thank you also to our channel members and Patreons who are making these videos possible, in addition to our friends over at Lowland Miniatures. So specifically Chris Sexton, Cheshire, and Jim Callahan, Michael Rowan, Mike Pierce, and Sean Burn at the top level. Thank you guys for contributing so massively to the channel and making this what it is. Thank you also to the priests, who are epic and lovely and gorgeous human beings, and also to all the acolytes out there that are really, really helping. If you are interested in what we're doing and you want to support it more, please do consider signing up either on YouTube or on Patreon. Either is fantastic and we will appreciate the support and enable us to do more stuff. And more stuff means more videos, and more videos is probably more good. So do consider doing that. But for the time being, that is the turn tracker. What are your thoughts? Do you have any questions? Is there anything you're not clear on? If you do, whack it in the comments below. If not, look forward to another Traveller's Guide to Warcrow coming soon. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you all again soon. Goodbye.